Hey everyone, I'm Tom Knezick and welcome to Whiteboard Ecology. Today we're going to talk about straight species native plants. But first, before we get started, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps to show your support and keep us motivated to keep doing these and put out more great videos so you can watch them at home. Getting to it. What is a straight species native plant? If you watch Fran's video, someplace over here, you heard him talk about straight species native plants and what the importance of using them on restoration projects. But what is a straight species native plant? When he's talking about straight species, what does that really mean? And well, let's think of a plant. How about maples? When you look at the botanical name for maples, you have acer. It's derived from Latin, and it basically indicates that that plant is going to be a maple. But what kind of maple is it? Is it a red maple? Is it a sugar maple? Is it a silver maple? They all have botanical names as well that are all derived from Latin or try and sound Latin. So for red maple, it's Acer rubrum. Kind of sounds like red, right? For silver maple, it's Acer saccharinum. For sugar maple, it's Acer saccharum. Those two are kind of close, a little bit confusing, right? So it does get a little bit confusing. The reason why we use these names instead of stuff like red maple is when you get into some of the more obscure stuff, those names tend to change from region to region, and something that's called buttonbush here might be called buttonbush, or might be called something else elsewhere in the country or elsewhere in the world. So especially in the nursery trade, we like to refer to stuff by its botanical name so that we can reduce confusion and we don't send something that they weren't expecting just because we're using the common name and their common name meant something different here. So going back to red maples. So you have the genus and then you have the species. So genus Acer, species Rubrum. And then you see that we have this variety or cultivar tag over here. And this is something, if you're going to a garden center, you're more likely to see. So one variety of red maple is October Glory. Probably one of the most popular varieties of red maple out there. And that's because in October, it turns really a beautiful fiery red. And in the case of this, someone probably found it a long time ago. Found a red maple out in the woods or someplace in the swamp and found it and just saw in October, oh man, that has such a beautiful color. And they went and took some cuttings from that plant and bred it on and found out that each cutting they produced looked just like this mother plant. And that was because they were genetically identical. Each cutting that they produced a plant off of was genetically identical to the original October Glory red maple. And this is because they're using a piece of the plant. That piece of twig or that piece of leaf or that piece of root was exactly, or it was part of that original plant. As that piece of plant started to grow, it was genetically identical to the original. So when it came and leafed out in October, it looked just like the mother plant did back in the day. So while this is a type of red maple, that doesn't mean that these are any less. So if you're looking at the straight species, it's anything that's just Acer rubrum. Once you get into this, now you're looking at a cultivar. And that doesn't mean cultivars are bad. Cultivars are used in a lot of different landscapes, especially when you have one or two in your front yard or backyard, or it's in the park, and it's for aesthetic value for us to look at. And they can be very beneficial because they're still this native plant right here. They're still a red maple. But not all red maples are going to be October Glory or any other variety that you might see out there. And that's because these are all produced from seed and genetically diverse. And even so, if you were to take a seed off of an October Glory red maple and plant it, it would no longer be an October Glory red maple. It would now just be a regular Acer rubrum red maple. And that's because it's no longer genetically identical to the October Glory. It's only 99.999% identical, similar to how you and I are genetically nearly identical. We're 99.999 to whatever decimal place identical. But when you look at me versus you, I might be tall and you might be shorter. You might have blue eyes while I have brown eyes. You might have blonde hair while I have this fiery red beard that kind of resembles this October Glory red maple. So even though we're nearly identical, there's those slight genetic differences that in the straight species plant, each one is going to be a little bit taller or a little bit shorter or a little bit different shape or have slightly different color leaves in the fall. And all these little slight genetic differences help it survive and be resilient in the landscape when it comes to a population. So if you have one or two in your yard, having a variety is probably just fine. There's really no complaints about it. But going into a restoration project and you're going to plant hundreds or thousands of red maples, that's when you want to have the genetic diversity, because some of those might not be quite right for that environment. You wouldn't want to plant 1,000 October Glory red maples and find out there's a little bit too dry there, or a little bit too wet, or there was a drought and they weren't as drought tolerant as some of these might have been. So when we're planting 1,000 regular straight species red maples that were all collected from seed, hopefully local to where that job site is, we're hoping that the majority of the population survives. That we may lose some because they aren't tolerant to those conditions, but overall you want that population to survive and then reseed and get lots and lots of red maples 100 years from now, not just one or two like you might want in your front yard, and you don't want any more after that. There's tons of these. You have tons of different just types of varieties of red maples, but you also have stuff like Viburnum dentatum. Let's see if I can spell this right. Another really popular shrub for the landscape, another really cool native plant. But you have stuff like blue muffin, and Chicago luster. And these are if you have a blue muffin and you find it in Tennessee, or you find it in New Jersey, or you find it in California, are going to be genetically identical to each other no matter where they were grown, because they are all stemmed from that mother plant that was found at some point in time. And so they're all going to be exactly the same. At least they should be. Same thing with the Chicago luster. They should all be exactly the same. And they're all types of Viburnum dentatum, but not all Viburnum dentatums are going to be like this. This is from seed, has genetic diversity. These are vegetatively propagated and are 100% genetically alike. And that about wraps it up. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, it really helps us out a lot, gives us more motivation to come back and do more of these. And we really enjoy it. So, and we hope that you guys are enjoying it too. And that's Whiteboard Ecology. Have a great day, and remember, keep it native. October Glory found out that each cutting that it might be this one, I don't know. But so with that, I hope I might be a little bit taller. You have blue eyes, I have brown eyes. You have red hair. Let's go home.